Welcome to another episode of Idiots Squared. Today, guys and girls and non-binaries, if you're listening, we discuss bullying. We discuss whether or not it's a good or a bad thing. We share some personal stories about when we've been bullied and when we've been bullied. Less about the being bullying, more about the bullying. Why bullying is actually a good thing, but it is what you make of it. So it can be bad, but it can also be good. Bullying as a form of error correction and helping you to develop or understand your own idiosyncrasies or chinks in your armor, and many other things. And like always, we just we save the best for last and we distill it at the end with some valuable tips and tricks. So thank you very much for tuning in and enjoy the episode. When I was younger and even into my earlier 20s, I suppose, you do these things that you're not necessarily proud of, and you end up bullying some people. Look, I'd like to say that, I would like to think that most of my bullying isn't actually like your typical bullying designed to sort of hurt people's feelings in some sense, but more like a banter, if that makes sense. More like highlighting some things that you might have observed somebody doing or some behaviors, and try to do it in like a bit of a jovial way to draw some attention to it to try and help them. But there definitely have been other cases where I have bullied. But as I got older, my bullying would typically be towards bullies. I used to enjoy bullying the bullies. I always found that quite enjoyable. And, and I always found that they were really bad at taking it. Yeah.
Guy,
what about you? Hey?
All right. Do you want to tell us a story about when you bullied a bullied? Or do you want me to share when I used to be a bully?
I'm going to... Yeah, you can share some, and then give me some time to go through the possibility ones. Figure out which ones might be good to share.
Gotcha. Okay, so I don't really like this story at all, but whatever. It happened when I was 12 years old. I was in grade 6, and we had a new kid at the school. And he immediately got the name Chicken Legs. And I don't even know why people call him Chicken Legs, but for some reason the entire school did. And it happened like right away. And he had a really difficult time making friends. And I don't think he ever made a friend, to be honest with you. I think he was getting bullied right from the get-go. And I eventually jumped on board and I did some of the bullying myself. It was never like one-on-one. It was always in like a group setting sort of thing. And I wasn't like the leader of the group, but this one time I did take a lead alongside my buddy. And this day was his worst day ever, I would say. Fuck, I'm telling this story and I feel shameful, but it is what it is. So it's the end of the school day, and for some reason we just start walking towards Chicken Legs, and suddenly our whole class gathers, and eventually, because everyone's getting out of school, the entire school gathers and is just following Chicken Legs, and he's scared as fuck. So he starts like running across the field towards this fence. And my buddy starts throwing rocks at Chicken Legs. So I start throwing rocks at Chicken Legs too. But I definitely didn't want to hit him. It was one of those things like, I was going to throw one, but I'm definitely not going to try and hit him because that's kind of crazy. That was like,
yeah.
But, so, my buddy was probably doing the same. I don't know. It was insane. We were trying to hit him with fucking rocks, sort of. And as we were throwing the rocks, he jumps the fence and he just started running. And that was it. That's the whole story. And, I think I saw him on the bus like a few years ago. And I was staring at this guy and I'm like, yo, is that fucking Chicken Legs? And we're talking about how many years apart would that be? Like 15 years apart, I think. And I couldn't confirm it. But I always wish I would have said, yo, what's up? Do you remember school and
Me throwing
just
rocks.
yeah, and just like straight up apologize to him because that was
Yeah.
fucked up. Yeah. Yeah, definitely one of my lowest moments, but yeah,
Did you ever see his legs?
never, guy, never.
Uh,
Oh, dude,
he might have had mad skinny legs.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he did. I don't remember that
Yeah.
detail. I just remember everyone calling him chicken legs. Yeah, he must. I think he had really long legs. I remember him being tall.
Okay.
Yeah. So
You were
I
going to
actually
say
have,
something?
yeah, I have a bit of an update on chicken legs. 2 years after that happened, I was already in a different school, by the way, because later that year in grade 6, I went to a different school. But I heard 2 years after that, one of my teachers, who, when he came in, he blew the doors off the place. Like everybody was preparing for this guy to come because he had such a reputation for being an excellent, excellent teacher. And when I had him, he was a dynamite teacher. Oh, okay. Sorry. So I have two stories about him. They're quick though. They're quick. So one
All right.
day, I'm not gonna say his name because both stories are kind of fucked up. So and actually, I was witness to I'm fucking the story up. He came before I left. All right. So that's how I knew him. This teacher. Yeah. So I had him and everything. And when I had him, he we had a black girl in our class, and the one day he turned off the lights and he turned them on, and then he like looked at her and he said, "Oh wow, there you are." And as a 12-year-old, I remember thinking like, "Yo, that was too much. That was a little bit too much. Like this guy fucking crossed the line." You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, that's intense.
Yeah, it was, dude. And when I was 12, I was shocked. But anyway, so that's this guy. I'll put the name Mr. Black. I'll call him Mr. Black.
Okay.
All right. So Mr. Black, 2 years after I left, he got pissed off at chicken legs in gym class. I guess he just wasn't, listening or something. And he took the football and he threw it at chicken legs' head. And apparently he pegged chicken legs hard with the football. And he ended up getting fired for that, actually.
Oh, wow.
Mr. Black. Yeah. Yeah.
Poor chicken legs.
Yeah, even the fucking
it. Yeah.
Even the teacher jumped on board, guy. Like,
Yeah, that's
unreal.
crazy.
Like he would have known that chicken leg was getting bullied. I mean, he works there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, big time. That is crazy. So are they both your stories done? Okay. So I have a similar story. When you were mentioning the rock throwing, it piqued my memory to one incident where I was a bully. So similar thing, like young, early teens at school. And you're right, bullying, like my experience of it, typically happens in groups, not necessarily one-on-one. It tends to be more of a group phenomenon, and something related with hierarchies and power dynamics and all that kind of weird, that stuff. Anyway, there's a group of kids in my year who, I knew and was relatively friendly with. But some stuff had been happening with them, not to do with me, but to do with another group of kids that I also knew. So there's a bit of a dynamic between there. And for whatever reason, one day we're down in the playground. It's like towards the end of lunch, or might have been the middle of lunch. But anyway, so we're there, and I ended up stealing this kid's sandwich. All right, he was a bit of a smart ass and a bit of a, he gave a lot of shit, if that makes sense. But he's a bit of a larrikin. And he was giving some shit to someone, and I ended up stealing this kid's sandwich, right? And so we were throwing the sandwich between us, and he's like, give it back. And we're like, no, you got to get it off us kind of thing, throwing the sandwich. And then somebody accidentally dropped the sandwich when we were throwing it between the group of people I was with, right? So one of the other guys dropped the sandwich, and this guy got the shits real hard, and he punched the kid that dropped it. But in retaliation for that, I ended up bashing the kid whose sandwich was. So we stole a kid's sandwich. We were throwing it around. Someone else dropped it. The kid whose sandwich we stole punched the kid who dropped the sandwich. And then I bashed the kid whose sandwich we stole, who punched the kid who dropped it. And I'm laughing about it. I didn't do lots of damage. It was like a quick little once over. There was no like lasting damage done, or no black eyes or anything like that. It was more of a couple of gut punches and things. So anyway, that all wraps up, and I wasn't very proud of myself. I felt a bit shitty. I did feel shitty about that. I was like, that was kind of unfair. We started that, and I finished it. That's not really that fair. Anyway, so we're walking back to class, and as we're doing this other kid comes running down and had like a kitchen knife, but like not like a big metal like one. It was like a little steak knife, like some of you cut your steak up with, but like a little one. Anyway, he was threatening a bunch of kids with it and saying he's going to stab them. And then a friend of mine at the time was quite an intense person. And as we're walking back, he starts like getting worked up about this. Like, what the fuck? Why is he bringing a knife to school? Like, what is this fucking idiot? Like, this and that. So then he starts throwing rocks at this kid because we're walking back into class, like you all sort of make your way back after lunch. So he's throwing rocks at this kid, and then he starts picking up progressively bigger rocks, right? And then where we're walking, it's like asphalt, like the bitumen road, and parts of it are breaking away. So he picks up this fucking chunk, and I remember it being like this big, like huge, like a solid chunk. And he does this big underhand, like throws this giant chunk of road, okay? Not one of the little rocks hit this kid, but the big chunk of road smoked him, like got him good. we thought he was dead. Like it like lit this kid up, and we were like, what the fuck? And so that was another instance of something that I've been involved with that I wasn't proud of, because I shouldn't have allowed that to happen. We should have pulled the plug before the big chunk of asphalt got thrown. But like you said, I didn't think that he was going to hit him with it. I didn't think he had any chance. Like, crazy. But yeah, that's just one of a few. There are many.
Wow, dude, that's nuts. So I think before, heavy. Yeah, the rock was heavy, guy. I think
literally, yeah, bad.
I think before you tell your story about when you bullied a bully, because that just sounds glorious. What is it about bullying? Like, why do you think we do it? Why do people do it?
I think it's one of these things that is either complex or complicated. I'm not sure just yet which one we can sort of put it under, but I think there's many. Look, from my experience, a good chunk of the bullying that I've been exposed to, or the bullies that I've been exposed to, it's typically because they've either been bullied or they're hurting. Like I have a general rule that I sort of live by now, which is that sad people are mean and happy people are nice. And so if you come across somebody that's mean or is a bully or any of that kind of stuff, I think it's safe to say that they're probably hurting on the inside. And then that's a projection of their hurting on the inside. That's one aspect. I know for myself, when I've been a dickhead, it's because I was hurting on the inside in some way, or I had learned that behavior from it being done to me or being exposed to it. I think that explains a big chunk of bullying. And then the other aspect would be like pecking orders, which is interesting because it's they call it a pecking order. And why do they call it a pecking order? It's because, well, they observed it in chickens. So I'm someone that's had chickens. I like keeping animals in that regard. I love fresh eggs, and I love to know what the chickens are eating, a healthy diet, all that kind of stuff.
Shout out
an interesting thing to observe. Yes. The golden goose. So the interesting thing to observe with the chickens is if you have a group of chickens, there will always be the lowest chicken and there will always be the highest chicken in the hierarchy. And so for me, when we had ours, we had like 7 chooks at one time. One of them was a little bit blind maybe in one eye, or just didn't have the same as good a vision as the rest. And the other chickens would peck her continuously. Like if she came to try and eat, they would like peck until she wasn't allowed to eat when they were eating, only they could eat, that kind of stuff. And they treated her like really quite badly. And it's what you would, typically define as bullying is what they did to the chicken. So I think the hierarchy stuff, or the status, like the fact that for whatever reason, as humans, we do have these sort of levels in the hierarchy, and people have to occupy that. And if you sort of don't fight back or you don't stick up for yourself, well, then you indirectly just become what other people want you to be or put where other people want you to be put. And it's kind of like part of it is a bit of a litmus test, like if you start to get bullied and you don't retaliate or you don't push back, well, then they're just going to keep doing that to you because they can, kind of thing. I don't know. It gets complicated, but yeah, you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, just from what I've heard, listening to other podcasts, I suppose, talk about it, how usually bullying is a reflection of some sort of inner pain, right? Or some sort of behaviors that they may have learned at home through abuse or something that usually seems to be one of the larger underlying causes. And I understand that you also concur that you've had some sort of underlying pain as well when you were doing some of the bullying. I didn't find that for myself I had any sort of underlying pain. I feel like I've always been really aware of myself and my emotions. I had a really good upbringing, so I wouldn't have any sort of excuse to say that I've gone through some sort of trauma per se. My parents got divorced. That was about as bad as it got for me, right? But that's sort of normal. Happened when I was 6. I remember it, but it was a good thing, because they just weren't getting along, and there was a lot of arguing. I remember there was a lot of nights that I wasn't able to sleep because there was so much arguing going on. But in terms of physical abuse, that was never the case with my parents. It was just sort of just disagreeing on literally everything, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, I mean, I can't really say I've had any sort of really painful.
But you weren't a bully.
Instances. Well, the thing is,
you might have participated in some.
Yeah, and so that's where I was kind of going with it. Is that there's something about the group setting, right, where you feed off each other. Like I saw, one of the main bullies doing something. I want to jump in, be cool with the main bully, show everyone else that I'm cool. Like this sort of crazy bubble that we create, thinking that, oh, I'm cool if I participate in this bullying. It's not fucking cool. But at that age, I perceived it to be considered cool. So I kind of did it more for that, for the acceptance, to be cool with everybody and be cool with the bully. And I achieved that, and I was right. I achieved, I guess, popularity, but probably not in the healthiest way. So there's something to say about people in group settings. I think that's kind of really well known, that people sort of act in miraculous ways sometimes in group settings. Sort of things go way too far. And that's pretty much all I have to say about that, really.
So you hit on it, which is, it ties in with the hierarchy stuff as well, but it's also group acceptance, right? So one way to become tighter in one group is to show that, you're against that other group, or you're against that other person who's not in that group. So it's we can think about it in terms of ins and outs, right? So you mentioned that you wanted to do it to show to the other bully that you're in with them, or you can do this too, or you're on their side, that kind of thing. And that's a way to show that you are on their side, or you are similar to them because you do a similar behavior to them, or you also don't like that person. So you guys can now bond on the fact that you both don't like that person, or you guys are bullies, so you can bond on the fact that you're both bullies, or, you share a commonality in being able to pick on this person, or any number of those things. But it can help. This is the crazy thing, is it can help you to bond, think about wars and things like that. People in an army, if you're in the American army, and it's 9/11, when the towers get hit, okay, and so, we got to kill all the terrorists, and so they can all bond together. They can all sort of, they're all scattered, they're all being trained separately, whatever, but they can all come together with this shared vision or mission, this clear enemy that they can paint. And so that can help them to bond together to band against the others. And I think it's that's just at a larger scale. But I think the similar or analogous thing happens on the individual and with the littler groups. Does that kind of ring a bell?
Yeah, definitely. I would say that that's the last time America was actually united, since then they've divided like crazy.
Yeah. So there's an interesting thing here with fundamental physics, which is the outward is inherently sort of like as things are left, they sort of just tend to diverge, if that kind of makes sense. Whereas it's that inward is bringing together. So when we're going in, we tend to bring together, and when we're going out, we tend to separate. And so without that common enemy or without that thing, things do tend to just get more and more branched or branch out further and further and further, get more divergent. Sorry, divergent is the better word. And then as you've got that common enemy, you can converge together. And yeah, you're right. I think that probably was one of the last times they were really united. I think the Ukraine thing was trying to be like that, but it definitely hasn't. It seems to have divided, but like in a weird way, maybe into like 2 or 3 different groups. Anyway, we diverge. Okay, so back to bullying. Okay, so time I bully to bully. I'm going to leave out a good amount of the specifics, so to speak, because of who the person is, etc. And some of the language might be a bit vulgar. But we were away on a family trip once, and this bully was a chronic bully throughout my like late. Oh no, early to mid teens, okay, or even late teens, early to late teens, right? Pretty much my teen years. And we were away on a skiing trip or a snow trip at the time, and we're all sharing accommodation. Okay, and the bully was just notorious for like giving everyone a hard time and just being a general like shithead. Okay, and everyone wanted to say something, everyone wanted to do anything, but no one would, if that makes sense, right? So I was just like, this kid is getting special treatment. This is ridiculous. And they're a couple years older, okay? So they're like 3 or 4 years older. And I just couldn't understand. I'm like, this person literally annoys everyone and makes everybody feel miserable and is a dick to everyone. Like, why do people let him get away with it? Like, this just makes no sense. And so one night or one evening, it was getting to the point where I was just like, fuck it. I'm just going to start giving this person shit. Like, I'm just going to bully them back. Like, this is a joke. Like, everyone's annoyed. Everyone's having a bad time because this kid is just being a dick, right? So I start little subtle bullying, like little subtle, bit of banter, bit of negging, that kind of shit. And then I really start to accelerate it. He starts to try and fight back, and then I just start pumping it, like going hard. Like, and I'm quite an observant person, so I was making some subtle observations and highlighting that, and highlighting a bunch of what I would perceive to be chinks in their armor, and doing it in a way that everyone else could see it, right? So this poor bully did not take it well. Had a ginormous hissy fit. Starts crying, has this big meltdown, etc. Right? So then they make a complaint against me. The bully makes a complaint against me and tries to get me kicked out of the shared accommodation where we are, right? And I was like, no way. And so I had a meeting with the adults, so to speak, and they're like, we've had reports that you've been doing this and you've been back like this, and you've made this person feel really uncomfortable, and they've made a complaint against you. And I was like, this person has been bullying everyone, you included. Like, I've seen you cry because of what this bully said to you. Like, how am I getting in trouble? Well, he's lodged a formal complaint. And I'm like, yeah, and I'm like, I'll lodge a formal complaint, right? Like, I'll do the same thing, okay? So and then they're like, try not to, like, we'll try and keep this calm. And I'm like, no, I'm going to lodge a formal complaint too. Anyway, so long story short, we get put back in, and they're like, you have to try and make amends. You've got to apologize. And I'm like, I'm not apologizing. And it goes on back and forth, and I'm like, okay, fine, I'll apologize. So I go back in to the shared accommodation, right? And I go up to apologize, and I'm apologizing, and they're like, yeah, you should apologize, you idiot. That's the nice version. Said something. I said something a lot harsher, and I was like, fucking kidding me? I was like, because they thought I was genuinely doing it. I said, you're pushing the fucking limits here. I was like, I'm only apologizing because they made me apologize because you started crying because you're a pussy, right? And then that just sets it off. So then we're back into it. We get separated, this whole big thing. Anyway, long story short, they had to get secondary accommodation for this other person because the other person refused to be in a room with me after the bullying episode. But the moral of that whole story is we all had a fantastic time after that because the bully wasn't in the place anymore. And the bully was mad pissed because he had no one else to bully and was just by his lonesome, sorry self.
What did everyone else have to say once the bully left?
Oh, they were all like, oh, it's so much better now, et cetera, et cetera. Like,
Okay.
they really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But it was weird because once the adults were involved, everyone like sort of like when they saw that the adults were kind of flipping on me, everyone sort of started to flip on me a little bit. And I was like, no way. Like, you guys have all been complaining. You're all been victims of this. No way. Like, what the hell? And so then once we flipped it back, we're like, fight fire with fire, so to speak. Like, I'll put a formal complaint in. But it was crazy because the bully literally bullied those adults as well. And then they started feeling sorry for that bully because the reaction was really bad. Like, the kid was crying, older than me, like 4 years older than me at the time.
How old were you guys?
Was crying. Hey?
How old were you guys?
I would have been 15 at the time, or 14, because they would have been 8 or close to 18.
Oh yeah, I think you said they were 18. Yeah, my bad.
So like almost an adult essentially. But yeah, like as soon as I flipped the bullying and started doing, all I did really, this is the thing is, I just did what they did back to them. Like, they were really good at picking little subtleties for, and picking on people for that. And so I just did that back to them and highlighted all their idiosyncrasies, that kind of stuff. But yeah, because they handled it so badly, the teachers felt, or the adults felt sorry for them. And then, it very funny situation. But yeah, I learned a lot from that, like a huge amount. Sometimes it's not as productive to go as hard as you feel like you should at times.
Yeah, I mean, you're 14. It's hard to sort of judge those things, right? That was probably still one of your first experiences doing something of that nature. So yeah, it's something that I think you would have to, at least explore to understand it more. So I wouldn't say that you're at fault for that in that way. I mean, 14, right? But you said a lot of.
You go.
You said a lot of interesting things, actually, because what's really interesting is that some people do get special treatment, and this bully was getting special treatment. And I was kind of trying to think about why that would be, because even in other circumstances, you're only as strong as your weakest link, right? In a lot of group settings, and I'm sort of trying to apply that perspective to yours as well here with the bully. And all I can really think is that there's like a fear that they have of him, that they might get, it even worse. So they don't really do anything back too, right? And I guess like the pecking order was set and the bullies sort of did that. So everyone sort of just like got used to their roles quickly and realized that, okay, well, he's the one that's going to be talking all this shit. And that was that. But I also think like you exposing him and making him cry showed that he's kind of weak in a way, right? Because he wasn't able to deal with it. Like if you're dishing it, you have to be able to take it too. And I guess like
agreed.
Yeah, but he wasn't able to do it, and he even cried and filed a complaint. It just goes to show you that he's not the strong one in the pecking order at all. He was sort of like puffing out his chest and attempting to be that person. So I think you really helped him out exposing him, because it sounds like he needed that, right? He needed that for, to become an actual strong person and not have the need to sort of put others down. So I think that experience for him was probably beneficial as well. I think he probably learned hopefully he learned a lot from that too. It all depends on his level of self-awareness. Because if you don't have a high level of self-awareness, then it's difficult to learn from certain circumstances. So it depends, I guess.
Big time. But it's you're right in saying that it was an opportunity to learn, right? There's an opportunity there to learn. Whether or not someone takes it, who knows? But yeah, I think that you're right. The level of self-awareness plays a big role in that, but then also the other environments that you're in, because it's crazy to think that just, like you can puff your chest and not necessarily have anything to back it up. And in certain environments or around certain people, that's enough. Like no one really sort of challenges it or pushes back. And I think that that's a really interesting thing about life, is that like so much of people getting into power or, being in these positions or being revered could just be from chest puffing with not much follow through. There's a good saying, which is all bark and no bite when it comes to dogs. Or like, the bark is worse than the bite, that kind of thing. And it's just like, yeah, you're signaling something, but there's no real substance behind it. Like you're not necessarily going to back it up. Again, another word is posturing. But yeah, it's fascinating because when you push against it and you realize that it all crumbles away, you're like, oh wow, this is all just a facade. But it was crazy how like the adults were scared as well in that situation, and that they were like, they wouldn't say anything even though they were being bullied too, and they were having a miserable time. Like everyone would complain about how bad they felt or this person made them feel, if that makes sense. And I don't know. This is a weird thing that I have, right? But I just people continuously or repetitively complaining about like the same thing that I think there's an easy fix there. It just like it doesn't do my head in, but it just like I'm like, yo, deal with it. You know what I mean? Like stop complaining. Like the complaining to me is worse than whatever you think you have to do to face this. Like, why not just face it head on? And so like, you can deal with it for so long, but at some point you just got to be like, fuck, like, let's just put a stop to this. Like, or let's just try something so that like everyone stops complaining, because this is not fun. You ever found that?
Like it's not fun having that sort of environment when you're in a group setting.
Well, that environment in a group setting, but just like certain people's ability to continuously complain about certain things without actually doing anything different. They're happy to complain, but not happy to do things that they could do to change it. You know what I mean? It's like they just get stuck in the complaining mode.
Right. Yeah, I gotcha. So I do find that, and people do love to complain, but because actually doing something like what you did solve the issue, sort of. I mean, I would say that you solved the issue. That was a very good thing that you did, in my opinion. I believe so. But anyways, it's really hard to do. That's why no one was able to do it. So congratulations to you for like having the courage to do so. I think people are just scared. They live scared. Even adults do. I mean, there was a whole bunch of adults and they're scared of this 18-year-old, right?
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah. So it is crazy. And it's just like such a weird environment to be in, like kids and adults, and everyone's scared of like one of like the
kids.
Yeah. One of the kids. It's a crazy mindset to be in, but
have you ever seen that? Like, because I've seen it I see it all the time. I see parents afraid of their kids, like they, like this is a regular thing in my opinion. Like it's bonkers. Like I see kids being bosses all the time and I'm like, yo, kids shouldn't be bosses.
Yeah, dude, that's wild, right? I do see that now too. But when I was a kid, I remember my dad being a boss. So if there was if there was another kid bullying everybody, my dad would be like, yo, like he would talk to that kid right away. He was a boss. So, and I found my dad's friends were also bosses too. Like they wouldn't put up with that kind of shit. They were like really direct, and they didn't fear anything. I don't know. So it's strange to hear that when you were that age, that those adults, I guess men have already been going through sort of like that transition. I feel like there's a lot like less stoic men. So
Definitely.
so
But also
maybe
the systems, right?
yeah
School. Think
yeah
about it, like or in those different dynamics, right? We grew up in a generation. We were like on the cusp, or as this was all unfolding, which was like the equality, and everyone's a winner. You all get participation awards. You got to be kind, and everyone's special. All of those different sort of mantras, and this was like, they'd outlawed. They didn't have spanking in my school, or like how people used to get smacked, or the cane or anything. Like, we didn't have any of that kind of stuff. And I think that kids being kids, we like, sort of, your goal is to push the boundaries. But when like none of those boundaries have any real like physical repercussions that sort of are threatening, like, you can just continuously push boundaries and not really worry. Like, when I was a kid, the worst thing that could happen is you get suspended or expelled from school. And like, for me, I was like, well, that sounds fun because I don't enjoy school. Like, it's boring AF. Like, school is largely boring for me. So getting expelled or suspended wasn't really a bad punishment. Does that kind of make sense? Whereas like, if I did something bad and I had to have like a boxing match with a teacher that was like way bigger and stronger, that might have been intimidating. Or if, they were able to smack me, then maybe that would be intimidating. But like, yeah, I
so
think that plays a role.
yeah, I think so too. So I actually think that a certain level of bullying is actually a positive thing. So let me try and break it down.
I agree with you wholeheartedly without even hearing what you have to say.
Okay. So when I was growing up, we used to just talk shit all the time to each other, right? Like, that's what we did. Like, if someone wore the wrong fucking pants that day, we'd be calling them yo pants the whole fucking day. You know what I mean? And it could have been anything. We would just observe, and whatever we thought we could say to chirp each other, we would do. And sometimes your feelings would get hurt, but you always knew that, that you were going to dish it out too. And you might hurt someone's feelings as well, but it never really got to the point where, I mean, like maybe a couple arguments, but it was never anything serious where it didn't get solved within 2 minutes, because other members of the group would always be like, yo, like, come, like, we're just joking around, we're just fucking around, relax, guy. And then that'd be the end of it. It was a very simple fire to put out. But yeah, we would just always continue just talking mad shit about each other. And I felt that it made us sharper, that it made us, it just improved our communication. It was fun. We had a lot of fun. And it's endearing in a lot of ways. I've just found it to be very beneficial in a lot of ways. And also, like, it gives you a thicker skin, right? As well. I think that's really important in life, that you sort of build a tough exterior. Like, the world's fucked. The world's not gentle. The world's not going to be, Jesus Christ. The world is not going to be nice, So I think it's important that we sort of do at least build ourselves up some sort of way to be a little bit tough, to sort of get through things, get through work well, get through school well, get through other difficult situations well. Because there's also, what's it called when you apply something you learn from one task to another? There's a term for that.
Transfer learning.
Yeah. That's what it is. Yeah.
There's transfer learning. This is analogous to another thing. So you could take, something that's analogous or something that works somewhere and come up with an analogous version in another place. But yeah.
Yeah. It's a transferable learning skill. And I think that you can sort of apply, what we got from doing that to each other to other types of situations. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you made a good one. You made a fire analogy in there, right? It was always easy to put it out. Okay. So let's think about why that would be the case. Well, so we make an analogy here, which is between banter or, bullying. But we're going to say, like, banter is bullying, but in a productive way. Okay. And bullying that isn't productive, we'll say that's the traditional bullying. And then the bullying that is productive is banter. Okay. So the fire analogy, right? You said it's easy to put out. And I think that the reason that would be the case is because you were continuously doing these things to each other, that like the micro-bullying or the banter, we'll say, that there wasn't a lot of tinder or there wasn't a lot of grass or trees to be burned because you were continuously burning these things, okay? Because you were dealing with it on a daily basis. So you're lighting all these little micro fires and then they burn out or they get put out. But there's not a lot of food or fuel for the fire, okay? But if you don't do all this micro burning and you don't bring these things up and they go left unsaid, then that's like allowing the grasses to grow and the trees to grow. And so you've got all this fuel for that fire. And then all it takes is one spark, a tiny little thing can set that whole thing ablaze. And then it becomes this roaring bushfire that's really hard to put out and bad shit happens then. Right. And so it's this dealing with it on a regular basis, like sort of helps to reduce or inhibit the buildup of all this material or undealt with things or that kind of stuff. Does that kind of make sense? I think you're on mute, guy.
No, I thought that you were going to continue saying something, guy. Sorry.
Okay, I can. So I like that analogy, right?
Yeah.
I also think that the doing it regularly is, you mentioned another one, which is a thicker skin. So if you're actually if you're harsh on yourself, or if you're hard on yourself, there is a certain level of protection, body armor, resilience that you develop for that. So if I'm harder on because I live with my life, right? I know all of the intricacies about me and my mishaps and my errors and the things I've done or haven't done, et cetera, et cetera. Like I'm the one that's been experiencing my life since the beginning. No one else has. They only ever see, outside perspective or snapshots of it. So you can you know your track record better than anyone, really. Okay. So if you're hyper honest to yourself about your track record and you're harder on yourself because you have all of that detail, that intricacy, that experience with it, you can be harder on yourself than anyone else. And if you are, right, if you are harder on yourself than anyone else can be, then no one can ever fuck with you, right? Like if you have given yourself shit about every single thing you can give yourself shit about, all right, and you've come to terms with that and dealt with it and been through that path, then no one can ever fuck with you, right? So if someone picks on you about your pants or whatever, you can be like, yeah, I fucked up and wore the wrong pants today. God damn, these are hilarious looking pants or what. And then that person's just like, oh, that wasn't fun. Like, damn, you just disarmed my bullying ability, right? Like if you just own shit, it instantly takes away their power. It's mad interesting dynamic. We spoke about this before, but this is what Eminem did. And this is why he became such a prominent rapper, is because back in the day when he would rap battle people, he would just rip on himself, shit on himself, own all of his fucked up nuances and everything else. And then when it came time for them to have their turn to rip on him, they had nothing to say because he said it all. And it nullified them. And I think that's a mad antidote to a lot of this as well, is like, just be tougher on yourself. And if you can't be tough on yourself, then get yourself a good group of friends who will rip on you, right? Like,
that's what I would do. It works. For example, if I wore the fucked up pants, right, then I would be making jokes about it too. And I'd be even trying to make it more funny. Like I'd start maybe trying to walk weird or do some sort of like weird kind of movement to make the pants look even more retarded. And then, oh, fuck, we're not allowed to use that word anymore.
Retarded.
Yeah. That's one we can't use anymore, right?
No, we can. You certainly can. Don't allow that to be a thing, guy. That is not a productive way to go in life and society. Retarded is a necessary word. It's incredibly important. It's a real thing. Retardation is real, but it can happen. It's very it spans many dimensions. But like the technical definition of it is like if you retard a car's performance, right? You're inhibiting its ability to perform, or you're reducing its ability to perform. Retard is not like, I'm not meaning it in like a derogatory term towards like people that might be retarded. I'm not using it in that sense. I'm using it in like a more technical sense. If I say retarded, I say it's in the technical sense. Retarding in terms of holding back or restricting, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I got you. And yeah, good call. What would you say if your son was getting bullied? So you always see this in movies or in TV shows, how the dad will tell a kid, "Yo, punch him back." You know what I mean? Like, it'll be glorious. Punch him back. What do you think about that? Is that something that you would tell your kid as well?
I think violence is the last resort. So ideally, you never use violence, right? But in some cases, when all else has been tried and there is no other option, then it is, in my opinion, it is the last resort. Which is probably a controversial take, right? If my kid was getting bullied, it's so hard to answer these because it's also contextual, right? Like, it all depends on the nuances of exactly what's happening, but we can create an artificial situation here and we can go through it hypothetically. So if my kid's getting bullied at school, I'd want to understand what's happening. What are the circumstances around this? What is the child doing? I'd try and get as much context as I possibly could, and knowing what I know now about these different things, I'd probably speak to the parents of the other child, but I wouldn't accuse them of anything. I wouldn't say like, "Oh, look, your son's bullying." I'd try to generally get to know them a little bit and find out what's happening in the home life, right? I'm a big believer, especially with kids, that if kids are behaving badly or, not conforming to the system that they're in, or their behavior is undesirable in some way, shape, or form by someone's definition, that the problem is likely at home. It's probably not with the kids specifically. That's more of like an indication that there's a problem somewhere else. And so the first point of call would be home for me in that regard. So yeah, I'd try and get to know the kids' parents, find out, their worldview, or try and understand a little bit more about their worldview and who they are as people, and identify, like, is there some drama happening at home, or any number of different things, right? If there was something there, then I'd try and explain to my kid, like, hey, look, such and such is going through a hard time. If they're giving you shit, let's address it here, right? Like, so what are they giving you shit about? Why do you care about this? Oh, and if it's, because other kids think that it's true, they're like, well, why do we care what other people think? If you know that it's not true, why does that matter? I think there's lots of valuable lessons you can go through in that regard. And if all else doesn't work, right, and we've been through all of this and it still happens, or the other bully gets a bit violent, then I'd be like, okay, you've got permission to choke the kid out one time. Well, my kids will be doing jujitsu anyway, so like they're going to be gangsters. They're not going to I don't think they're going to necessarily get bullied, but if they do get bullied, they're going to have the sufficient skills to handle that shit if they need to.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I love that. What you just said. That's like a good tip almost. I feel like parents watching right now could sort of learn and take from that. I feel like what you said about becoming, acquainted. Is that even a word?
Yes, it is. I don't know if that instantiation is a word. Acquainted, I think, is the word you're looking for.
With the parents is a solid idea.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's a good move. Yeah, I love that. That's sick. Like, try and get, understand what their thing is, and then you could sort of speak rashly with them. I find if you are calling someone or, knocking on someone's door to talk to them about an issue, like the fucking dogs in my neighborhood, it's always bad to sort of just drop the bad news right away. And, so getting to know them first is always the best way to handle any situation. Because then you can talk level-headed with somebody, right? It's a lot easier, like, once you break the ice. But if I call the bully's parents, like, yo, so what's this I hear about your boy Johnny bullying my fucking son? Did you know that Johnny punched my son the other day? You know what I mean? That's sort of like aggressive it could be perceived as aggressive.
Yeah, you're not going to get the outcome you want doing it that way. One thing that took me 30 years to learn is the best way to talk about something is to not talk about it, right? Which sounds crazy and stupid, but it really is. Like, don't be direct. Like, don't ring up and try and discuss the thing you're actually trying to discuss. Go the exact opposite direction, invert, like, do not discuss the bullying. Don't discuss the punching. Definitely don't accuse them of anything, because all it's going to do is make them defensive, and you won't get anywhere. And there is no chance of having any sort of, logical or, like you said, rational discussion about anything. And don't even try and be rational, so to speak. Like, don't expect it to be rational. Talk about, try and gather information in other ways. Talk to them about their passions and interests, or ask them questions about themselves. There's a really good book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. Have you ever heard of it?
No. How to Win Friends and what?
Influence People.
Oh, okay. No, I haven't read that book.
I think the guy's name is Dale Carnegie. I could be wrong on that. Anyway, it's a great book. I've read it a couple times, right? So, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And he goes, if you want people to like you, okay, if you want people to like you, ask them questions about themselves.
Absolutely, yeah.
If you want people to not like you, right, talk about yourself.
It's so true. It's so true.
That just highlights the psychology of being human, right? And so I would really adopt that if my kids were getting bullied or there's some problems. I would I would try to talk to the other parents, and I would ask them questions about themselves. I'd get interested in their lives and try and get to understand and know them better before any of that other conversation would happen. So I'd be playing a slightly longer game. As much as I'm sure, like, the typical response would be, your kid gets bullied, you get so worked up, all you want to do is just ring them and abuse them, right? That's not going to be productive in most cases, right? Some cases it might work for sure, but I don't think it has the highest probability of success or getting the outcome you want. So yeah, that's it essentially.
Do you think online bullying is worse than like actual personal bullying, just because so many people can jump online and it can sort of, grow and grow, and then you start seeing the numbers of people jumping on, and that sort of gets to your head more? Or do you think, personal bullying, like real life bullying, is more damaging?
That's a very good fucking question, guy. That is, I don't know. Holy shit. Oh man, that is a big topic. I think that it nearly could be for many reasons, but one, because it sort of is in some sense disconnected from physical reality. Like, the best thing about bullying in real life is that like, you can physically, like, you can do something about, you know what I mean? Like, if you really want it to stop, there is that physical aspect that is the last resort kind of thing, Whereas online, that's a whole new space. And I know it's interesting too, because we are social organisms, and it could, as a young kid, you're trying to figure out, like, who are your people, who aren't, like, how do I fit into society? Who am I? And a lot of who you are is defined by the people around you and that social group and how they perceive you. And so I could really see that playing a huge role, having massive, long tail consequences on people's, like, lives and their sense of self and confidence and everything. That's a great question. I'm leaning towards online could be more dangerous, but then there's another crazy thing, which is, like, the other thing with online too is, like, don't look like, but then it becomes really difficult, because you cannot be paying attention. But if everyone around you, or everyone in your physical space, like if you're at a high school or something, and everyone else is, and then they start to bring the online into real life, that could be quite overwhelming. But what do you think? I have to think about that a lot more.
You made a great point though, Because if the online transitions to school as well, that's like both your lives are getting fucked up.
Yeah.
That's true. That's a really good, that's something that we need to consider, right? Because it is possible that in the high school, I'm not gonna say it's impossible that you could only get bullied online, but in high school, everyone, doesn't really do any bullying, but you get ignored, right? You probably do get ignored, but maybe people aren't talking shit to your face because it's easier to talk shit online and people love to hide behind a keyboard. So it's likely there's many scenarios where the personal bullying is non-existent maybe or to a minimum. But if you did have both, like you said, like that would be wild. Also, something else came to mind that you hear sometimes. You hear people talk about stats, right? And they say that there are more suicides among teens now than ever. And I think I've even heard people trying to associate online bullying being a large factor. I personally don't really like that association because it's only two variables and there's so many other things going on. And we always talk about, meta, right? So I think there's a lot of other factors playing into that as well. So I don't think we could associate online bullying directly with more suicides among teens. I think there's something else to play. What do you think about that?
So I think it's very hard to point the blame on these things because I believe that it's like what you said, it's up to us to learn how to handle this stuff, right? Like you can't make the world less scary. We've seen it time and time again, like none of the rules and regulations that are designed to squash online bullying or squash this thing or stop this from happening actually work, right? But what you can do is better equip children and people to handle these things because like at the end of the day, like, I don't know, I would have to look a little bit deeper into this and categorize these things a bit clearer. But to me, most things that people perceive to be bullying don't need to be bullying. Like if someone's giving you shit about something that you are wearing or like some idiosyncrasy about you, like getting hurt and upset by that actually just highlights that you have a problem with it, not the other way around. And the easiest example is fat, right? So if someone says that you're fat and it hurts your feelings, well, that's because you have a problem and you are thinking that you are fat, right? And you don't like it. That's why you have a problem with it. But if someone calls you fat and you're not, and how can that ever hurt you? How can that ever do anything to you, right? And so I think it's fundamentally sort of like a cultural thing is like, I don't think we handle these things in the right way. I don't think that I don't think we have the right approach. I don't think we have the right mental models for what all of this means. Like I was just saying before, like if you're harder on yourself, then no one else can be hard on you. No one else can give you shit because you've already given it all to yourself. You've already become aware of all of your idiosyncrasies and flaws and all of that stuff. And like none of it's new news to you. So you can just like, if that what they're saying is true, you can own it. And then that just nullifies everything. And so I think that, that handles a large class of bullying. And so like, if we had kids that were resilient in that way, I think a lot of bullying, a lot of that bullying, if not all of that bullying would disappear. It would just become nullified. So it wouldn't even be a thing. Like we create the space for all this stuff to happen. So I think, I don't know if it's because of the rise in online bullying that suicides have gone up. I think that's probably, there would be a correlation there. Is it causation? I would say no. I would say it's the fact that we've become more fragile in how we deal with these things. And because we believed in this mantra of like, oh, this shouldn't be a thing. Bullying shouldn't be a thing. No, bullying shouldn't and will be a thing because it's a necessary sort of feedback loop between people to develop a, thicker skin. But I don't mean just like in the dumb old way of like, oh, you got to toughen up. Like, no, like actually learn how to handle adversity, like become more robust over time, like that anti-fragile stuff, like gain from the challenge, learn how to gain from the challenge, not take the challenge away completely. No. Learn how to gain from the challenge so that it ceases to be that that level of it ceases to be a challenge, and you could handle much more.
We would always jump on somebody more. Like if one of our buddies did show sort of weakness, like a joke did sort of fuck him up.
Get them.
Yeah, get him.
Yeah.
We would just jump on more and more and more. You know what I mean? So it's kind of funny how when we smell blood in the water, we go ahead.
Yeah, but in the right way, that's a way of fixing the chink in their armor. So think about it. When you do see one that they bite with or that gets them, you've just highlighted a weakness in their own perceptual state or their own the definition of themselves or their own themselves, right? And so by doubling down on that, you're forcing your body to have to sort of deal with that, which patches up his armor, right? And gets rid of the chink. So you're helping to make them more robust. But the crazy thing about that is, in the process of doing that, if you take it too far, or if there's too much on and there's too many vulnerabilities, then that can break a person. Yeah. And so there is that, like, you can't get away from that. That is part of it. And so that's what, like, I think that's what really good friends do, is that banter. Like, I know for myself lately, in the last, 10 years of my life, I've sought people out who are great at that banter, who are great at observing my idiosyncrasies or my chinks and pushing the buttons and trying to get me, worked up or riled up or whatever, because it's making me a better person. And like, I want my friends and the people around me to do that, because then if they do that, then no one else can fuck with me. Like, I become super resilient.
Yeah, that's not the first time I've heard you say that, actually. You've said that a lot. For as long as I've known you, you've actually said that to me, that you like being challenged, and you like that sort of, you like your friends to do that to you. So do I. Like,
yeah, that's why we get on so well, is because we're down for doing that, and we're happy to fuck with each other and like make fun of each other, and knowing that it's coming from a good quote unquote good place, because I'm not trying to like I'm not out to try and like get one over you. I'm trying to like highlight shit to you so that you can deal with it yourself. So it's not an issue for you, and we can laugh and joke about it. That's when it's really funny, because like being able to laugh at yourself and joke about your own bullshit, that's mad enjoyable for me.
Me too, guy. I like it too, actually. It's really funny. I even like to jump on myself too. And
yeah, slightly too much.
That's hilarious.
But we have a mutual friend who I would characterize. He characterizes himself as a realist, but I reckon he's a pessimist. But we balance that. I think both of you and I balance that out, because we're like, eternal optimists in that regard. But you would, on the surface, look, I've had many people say this to me, like, why are you friends with that person? They're so negative. And I'm like, I love that about them, because they see things in a different light that's very different from mine. And sometimes that challenges me. But I like that challenge, because it forces me to think about things differently to how I know I can get stuck thinking about things, right? Like, because I know I'm a forever optimist, and I can get stuck like that. So I like to have that balance. And in all seriousness, I find his predisposition incredibly hilarious, right? Like, you can speak to yours.
I just thought about something else. Because me and you both really enjoy and love comedy, right? Do you remember some of those round table? I can't remember what club it is in New York or was, but the stories about Patrice O'Neill, Bill Burr, who else was there? There was a bunch of them. They'd all sit around this table and they would just lay it on each other, like talk mad shit about each other, like cutting deep. Do you know what I'm talking about? Back in the day?
Yes, but I can't remember the name.
Yeah, I'm not.
But then you have like the modern version is Kill Tony.
That's true. Yeah, Kill Tony is like a modern version. Yeah, you're right. I still can't believe
it's a different format. But yeah, you go.
I just can't believe that Tony got in shit for what he did. Like, I mean, that was unreal to me, man. Do you know what happened?
What shit? Why? What? No.
When he dropped the word chink after an Asian an Asian comic. He was doing his bit. His whole bit was like, you haven't heard about this, Roops?
No.
Okay. So, yeah, Tony, it's Tony Hinchcliffe, right? That's his full name. I think so.
Yeah. Great joke writer. Very satirical.
Yeah, he's mad funny. So there was this Asian comic up, and the Asian comic was sort of doing the style of comedy where I don't remember if he was like bringing white people down or he was trying to, he was talking shit, right? And he was talking about how white people are mean to Asian. I think that's what it was. I think he was talking about bits where white people are giving Asian people a hard time. So Tony is in the back listening to all these bits about that, right? Because that's like a general topic of his 15 minutes. So Tony's like, yo, I'm gonna come out and I'm gonna say the craziest shit ever, right? So he came out and I don't remember what the line was, but it was basically like, yo, like fuck you, chink, or something like that, right? And then the comic had someone recording the whole bit, and they also got that part of Tony Hinchcliffe saying that, and I guess he clipped that part and he put it online himself, the comic, and Tony Hinchcliffe got mad backlash for that. Mad backlash.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. But so my thing with Tony is that backlash would only have made him stronger. It didn't break him.
No, not at all.
Right? Because he's that kind of guy. He's the kind of guy that will gain from challenge, gain from disorder. Now, it says a lot about the person that had to report that because, like, I'm a huge believer in this, but comedy is like a safe space. It has to be. You have to be free to be able to say whatever in that context, right? Like, that's the whole idea of it. I think comedy is essential for the development and growth of societies and cultures. Like, it's a place where you can fuck around and push the limits, go beyond those limits to find out where they are and why they are, right? And to identify whether or not is it useful to have our limits here, or if we retarded the system too much, or are we too free, so to speak. There is a balance between that, right? Like it's not that you, yeah. And I think, comedy is where we sort of figure out where the boundaries are. And I think it's a healthy way to do that. But yeah, I didn't know about that. That's interesting. But I doubt that it would have really had any lasting effect on Tony Hinchcliffe other than to make him more robust.
I agree. And yeah, there wasn't anything long lasting. I feel like the whole cancel culture is sort of dying down a little bit.
It's killing itself.
Yeah, it's exactly. So we just have to wait around for it to die.
Correct. Holy smokes, guys. Is your house all right? Do you need to check?
So the door just slammed downstairs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think so we should just do a quick wrap this up with comedy though. Like, I don't know. Have we done a pod on comedy already?
No, we hadn't. But I want to say one, or maybe I should wait. Maybe I should. Yeah, I should wait to say what I want,
because we can tie it all in.
Okay. If you're going to go to a comedy show and you're going to laugh at all the jokes, but then as soon as it becomes about you and you have a problem with it, like, come on, dude. You know what I mean?
You're the problem.
Yeah.
It isn't. No, it isn't what it is. It's you are the problem. If you're happy to laugh at everything else until something hits a nerve within you, you're the problem.
Yeah.
The fact that it hits a nerve within you is an opportunity for you to address why that hits a nerve within you. Why do you even have a nerve about that? It's highlighting to you that you have a problem, right? That's what it is. It's an opportunity for you to become more than that. You can surpass that. You can deal with that and get on with it. But if you double down on it and try and make it a problem for everybody else, that's shit behavior.
Yeah, well said, dude. I agree. And we should definitely do a pod about comedy.
On comedy. I have one more quick one.
Yeah.
So there's an Aussie guy called the Buttsman. He's an Australian comedian and he's got a big beard. He's currently getting sued. He has to go to court over a joke that he made because somebody in the audience or someone online doesn't like it. And so they're suing him or taking him to court over this. And I think that is shit. to be honest. But I am also a believer in, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and that there should, these feedback mechanisms. So this is going to be a big thing for him and for the comedy in Australia, like at large, right? Like this is going to be a really big deal. I'm confident that he'll, come out on top, but it's a bit of an ordeal that this guy's got to go through over a joke because somebody took offense to it,
I hope
and
so
it is
too.
a joke.
Yeah, I hope so too. But like, guy, Australia has been making some whack decisions lately, dude. Like this shit makes
Major
me worried.
whack.
Yeah, dude. Like, I mean,
I'm the same.
They for sure need to just throw that out. Like, if you're the judge and that comes to your desk, like that should be a complete mockery of the entire system. That should be thrown out right away. It shouldn't even be looked at. You know what I mean? Like, what kind of what are we fucking doing? You know what I mean?
Unless it says comedian and physical, right? Like unless it involves a physical aspect, then it straight out with a comedian, because like that's their job, is to push the limits of all of these things. Like it's, in some sense, it's a comedian's job to trigger people. Like if they're not triggering people, then they're not doing their job, right? Like that's the whole idea. There's this weird balance between comedy and truth. And it's like, it's a way of finding out what we as a society hold to be true, right? Because jokes are only funny if they are true in a sense. Like there's a weird balance. Like I want to dig into this whole thing. I think we need like a week to prepare for this pod. But like, you know what I mean? Like, that's the best jokes, is when there is that essence of truth, and you're like, oh, they distilled that, and they highlighted the ridiculousness around all of that, the dichotomy. A lot of it is contradictions. That's another big thing with comedy. It's so much comedy. So much of the great comedy for me, specific, what I love, is that highlighting of contradictions, like the silly contradictions that we have as a society or as people. Yeah. Anyway, you go. You riff off that.
I keep realizing that we should wait to talk about comedy in another podcast. I keep thinking about
shit to talk about.
Yeah, but I just wanted to go back to that round table thing I was telling you about. So they would just have comics at this round table, and then they would just continuously just push each other's buttons to the limit. What's his name? He was. I just saw a recent clip. He was in the movie 40-Year-Old Virgin. Oh, Kevin Hart. He had a little part in 40-Year-Old Virgin. That's one of the best parts in that movie. That's why I saw a clip of it the other day. But anyways, I guess he was part of that round table too. You know what I mean? And the one day he was on stage and he was making, I guess, just not very good jokes. And Patrice O'Neill took a phone book and he threw it on stage and he said, "Read it. There's better material in there." Something along those lines. So I just love hearing stories about the round table shit. Bill Burr shares a lot of them, actually. If you find like clips about Bill Burr and that round, I can't remember what club it was at though. But anyways, that made those guys like the best comics in the world. Like everyone that sat at that table is a massive, massive comic now. And Patrice O'Neill, if he didn't die, I think he would be. I think he deserved to be. What's the guy from Ohio? I'm still terrible with names. Chappelle. He would be like Chappelle level.
Chappelle status.
Yeah, dude, he deserved him. He was so fucking funny. His bit about I think he did it at Just for Laughs in Montreal. It's the one where he's wearing like the I think it's a brown suit, or like a beige suit, and he has the hat, and he's talking about his wife giving him shit. I'm not gonna say any of the bit because he's one of the goats, man. But,
go watch it yourself. I'm gonna watch it too.
Yeah, he just talks about just these scenarios where his wife is giving him shit, and he's just trying to like relax, have a good time, but she keeps like bringing up things and distracting him from him having a good time, and she doesn't allow him to have his good time, and it's great. It's a Just for Laughs. He's wearing that suit. It's like a beige or a yellowish, like, or maybe a brown suit, and he has. I should find it so people can actually look it up. So you can look it up too. It is, oh man, it is just.
Well, we can link to it. We can put a link to the vid.
Oh shit! Sorry. That was
That's
a
heavy
live.
music. We can put a link to it in the description.
Yeah.
Yes, and okay, so that was their battleground, right? Like that's where they were able to forge their armor and fix up the chinks and develop at an incredibly rapid rate because they were surrounding themselves with other people who were continuously battle testing them.
Fuck, it like plays right
Okay.
up. Ah, god damn it, plays right up.
Yeah. We've seen it. It's like a beige suit.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Yeah, that bit. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. So what I was saying is the round table was their battleground. It was where they forged their armor. It was where they developed their skills and were able to get confronted, because it's really hard to do it to yourself. It's hard to it's hard to see all the idiosyncrasies that you have because your ego hides them from you. So by surrounding yourself with other people who are observant and, can do it in that sort of comedy sense, that banter sense, you can level up at such a fast rate. And so that, like, where they were and what they were doing made them into the comics they are today, or played a huge role in that, because they were able to develop their skills and their self-awareness and their understanding of their own bullshit at such a faster rate. And you look at Kevin Hart, Kevin Hart's career is based off the fact that he's short. So that would have, and we know that was a big thing for him. Like, he's very self-conscious about that. So he turned his greatest weakness into his greatest tool or his greatest asset. And it was through the process of getting ripped on and all this other stuff that he learned, like, oh shit, I'm the one that has a problem with this. And it's up to me to make of it what I want to. So I'm going to turn this into a math. Like, I'm just going to rip on myself about being short and all this other stuff. And then everyone else can, find some joy and some laughter in that, and then I'll become successful as fuck. And that's really, that's essentially what he's done. Is he's turned his greatest weakness into his greatest asset, and he did all of that through that process. It's fucking magic.
Yeah, I agree. As a comedian, I don't actually enjoy Kevin Hart's sets, though. To be completely honest, I don't find him to be that funny. Like, it's just not really my style, I suppose. But he's mad funny in movies. Like, he's really good in movies, though.
I found some of his stuff to be quite funny.
Yeah.
His stand-up stuff. But I really used to enjoy whenever him and The Rock would get together.
Yeah, I agree. Them two together is mad good.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of The Rock, but when Kevin Hart and him get together, I always found it very funny. And the only other things that I must admit I found funny about Kevin Hart is when he's talking about his kids and how they disrespect him continuously. I just laugh at that because I think, that's your karma, bro. Suck it, like he had this one story. He shared it on social media. Somebody sent it to me, and he was taking his kid to an amusement park, or they were at an amusement park, and the kid's sitting on his shoulders, and they went to get on a ride, but Kevin Hart was too short to get on the ride, so the kid couldn't even go with him, because apparently he had to be accompanied by an adult, but he was too short, and then the kid punched him. The kid had the shits, and the kid, while Kevin Hart's filming it, he's like, "And they're not gonna let me be on this ride. This is discrimination." Da 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 da. And then as he's filming it, his kid just punches him in the head, right in the face. And I found that hilarious. I don't know why, but I find Kevin Hart getting injured by his kids hilarious, or his kids ripping on him.
Yeah, Kevin Hart destroys it on any interview, by the way. Like, any talk show he's been on, or any interview he's doing, or his banter with the basketball analyst. What's his name? You know which guy I'm talking about?
Oh, Charles Barkley, or the other guy?
Charles Barkley too, but the another guy. They're in a studio.
Not Kenny. Is it Kenny? Oh,
I saw him recently on the Full Send podcast. Actually, I'm gonna look.
Who? The analyst?
Yeah, the analyst. He's one of the biggest basketball analysts. One of the most outspoken ones. He's actually really, really good, I think. A lot of people don't like him because he has a lot of attitude, but I kind of like his attitude.
It's been years since I followed any of that.
Stephen A. Smith.
Yeah, Steve. Yeah, I know the one.
Their banter is so ridiculous.
Okay, that's okay. Another person who's hilarious that like isn't even a comedian, but Charles Barkley and Shaq.
Yeah.
Those two
Yeah.
are hilarious. When I was really into basketball, anything with Charles Barkley, I would be into straight away. That dude is so indirectly hilarious. It is not even funny. Like,
Yeah.
oh, well, it is funny. It's so funny. He is the best.
I agree. And look, they're all bullying. They're all micro bullying each other. Like all the banter, it's micro bullying. Like I love how they
That's
still carry it on. You know what I mean?
So I think one thing we can take away from all of this, the discussion about bullying and everything else, is it is really dose dependent as well. And so it's like a poison, you know, like there's a good, I'm going to butcher this, but famous chemist is like asked to define what a poison, what makes a poison. And then his answer is the dose. Like everything is a poison at the right dosage.
Mm.
Okay. And I think it's the same for bullying. Like it's not about getting rid of it. It's about like, you know, teaching people how to deal with it because it's the dose that matters. And so like you start with little doses and build your ability up and you can handle bigger and bigger doses. And the idea would be is, you know, if you've, you know, if you've been through it enough with yourself, there isn't a dose that you can't handle. There isn't a scenario that you couldn't handle. I think that should be like the meta goal for us as society or people is to get to that point because then no one can fuck with you.
Absolutely. I agree. Very important to sort of understand the chinks in your armor, like you said, and overcome them, become a stronger person. If you show people that the banter or the bullying is not affecting you, then it won't affect you. I think it is.
Well, it's not just about showing though. It's actually not allowing it to affect you because you've already dealt with it yourself.
Right.
That's the big key. It's not about like, oh, don't let them see that it's hurting you. No. Like get it to the point where it doesn't hurt you. That's it. That is the skill. And the only way you can get to that is by you yourself dealing with it, coming to terms with it and owning it. And once you do that, then they can't fuck with you. That's a superpower. So bullying is not a bad thing. Not a bad thing. It is what you make of it. It's neither, you know, like it's not good nor bad. It is what you make of it. And I think we can all definitely do better with it.
So definitely do not like the video. Do not subscribe to the channel. Please do not subscribe. Don't write any comments. Don't share the video with anybody. And thanks for watching.
Peace.
All right. Peace, bro. Love you.
Love you too, guys. Bye.